This is Football at 4.
Yeah, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. And just search Inside the Birds for their YouTube channel and shows. Adam Caplan's with us today. Football at 4 is brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We're going to get into some betting throughout the offseason and the draft and the summertime here. We'll take a look at some win totals and different things and have some fun throughout the summer. Adam Caplan, who not only covers the Eagles, he covers the league as a whole. We'll have some fun with that throughout Football at 4 in the offseason here. We are getting close to the draft, and our draft party, by the way, will be at Ocean Casino Resort's Top Golf. Will be out there for the first round of the draft. And Colin in Cape May Courthouse and Matt in Absecon, you are our latest qualifiers. So we'll see Colin and Matt, and they now have a chance to win a trip to Baltimore to see the Eagles play the Ravens this season. We don't know the schedule yet. We'll have that. But we're going to take a look at the Ravens and some others as we go to the AFC on this Tuesday afternoon with Adam Caplan on a day that Fletcher Cox had his final press conference announcing his retirement today. His entire family entourage was out there. It was a nice little scene at the NovaCare Center. Adam Caplan, welcome. How are you, my friend?
Mike, good to be with you here. And, yeah, it is amazing. We're only now 2 weeks and 2 days away from the first round of the NFL draft. So, yeah, we're getting close. And when we talk about these divisional odds, which we're going to talk about today, we're going to do the AFC in today's show, and we'll do Friday, we'll do the NFC. So many of these teams, it's like the Bills, right? They're 10.5. Their win total's 10.5. Well, there's no way. Again, the draft is coming here. But the Bills have a brand-new secondary they're going to have. They're going to have 2 new starting corners, 2 new starting safeties. They're also going to have 2 new starting receivers. When does that ever happen? So them at 10.5 wins, to me, is really forward-thinking. But again, they've got the draft coming up.
They do have the draft coming up, and then we'll see how that changes these. But I guess if you want to jump in early, let's take a look because you just said the Bills 10.5, and they've had an interesting offseason. They seemingly have torn it down, and I don't know how quickly they build it back up to get themselves to 10.5 wins. But this AFC East, very interesting. Got 3 teams seemingly in the mix there, and then the Patriots hanging out at the bottom by themselves. Boy, how times have changed.
It is amazing. Bill Belichick leaves, and, well, they were bad before Bill got kind of pushed out the door there. So the Ravens and the Chiefs have the highest win total projections. We'll get over them throughout this segment. And the Patriots and the Broncos have the lowest at 5.5 projection. So let's get started in the AFC East, where the Bills, yes, they're over 10.5 wins is plus 100 because, again, the division's a little bit tighter because of all the changes. And the under is minus 120, where I'd lean now. But, again, I want to see what they do in the draft. They have to add a minimum of 6 starters. That's obviously going to be next to impossible. So they're going to have to start guys who normally wouldn't start. But we want to see what their roster looks like. Now, right behind them, it's obvious what happens when you get a quarterback with Aaron Rodgers becoming seemingly healthy, coming back from his torn Achilles. Surprisingly, the Dolphins and Jets have the same win totals at 9.5, depending on, of course, which book you look at. Dolphins, the over is minus 145, which clearly they think they're going to be probably a 10-win team. The under is plus 120. How about this one? The Jets over 9.5, minus 110. Come on, that's. Is Aaron Rodgers worth that much? I guess.
Wow.
And their under is minus 110. Sometimes I go back, I'm like, well, did I write this down wrong? No, I didn't. And the Patriots, by the way, are the over. How bad is the odds makers think the Patriots are? The over is plus 115. The under is minus 140. How about that?
Well, for the Jets, I mean, they won, 7 games last year without Aaron Rodgers, so they're basically saying they could get 3 more wins with him.
True. Now, we have to understand that still got to play the Bills, still got to play the Dolphins. Rodgers basically didn't play last season. He lasted less than a series.
Yep.
So you just don't know whether he could be and he turns 40 later this year. You do worry about that. Now moving on to the AFC North, where once again the Ravens are the clear favorite at 11.5 wins. The over is plus 120. See, I would lean a little bit towards the under. I know they're generally going to be around 11, 12 wins, and the under's minus 145. But that division, the Bengals, by the way, and we'll mix this in with the Ravens, the Bengals, this is a little bit high for me. Scott Farrell and I talked about this yesterday on Sports Card. We thought this was too high. The Bengals are 10.5. The over is minus 125, which I don't agree with. If anything, I like the under, which is plus 105. So, as you said, if you're going to get in early, get on it now. And when you look at this division, now Joe Burrow's coming back healthy. T. Higgins is on the roster. Now, if they trade Higgins, that would be a concern of mine. But Higgins is on the roster for now. They have no one to replace him, by the way. They need help on defense. They're just not good enough on defense, Mike. That's why with Burrow's injury history, if you couple that in, I don't see 10.5 wins. I would go under there, which is plus 105. The Browns, the over is minus 125, which now with Deshaun Watson coming back, I know he's played good football since 2020. He's coming off of major shoulder surgery, 2 separate procedures. The over is minus 125. The under is plus 105. Now, my favorite one of all of them.
Oh, we agree, because I was going to say I like this one a lot.
The Steelers. Got to be the Steelers. Scott and I said run to the window. The Steelers are 7.5. The over is minus 165. Okay, so you got to give up a lot.
Yeah, not a lot of value, but there's a reason, I guess.
Well, and under is plus 140. Guys and gals out there. The Steelers have never had a losing record with Mike Tomlin. Oh, by the way, they've significantly upgraded their quarterback room. Don't you think Russell Wilson's a little bit better than Kenny Pickett? No offense to Kenny Pickett. Come on. Of course they're going to be. I've looked at the schedule. I mean, it's not easy, but again, the roster's better. Now they have work to do at receiver. They'll do that. They know that. They had some guys who were injured on defense last year. They're all going to be back. Yeah, I love the over 7.5.
Well, I think Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, let's say Wilson stinks or gets hurt, are better than Pickett and Mason Rudolph that got them, to 9 wins last year, Ted?
Yep, for sure. So now this is an interesting one. Boy, last year at this time, the Texans had a 5.5 win projection, or 6, depending on whatever book you were looking at. This year, the 9.5, the over is minus 145, which I slightly like. But that's a very competitive division all of a sudden. The under is plus 120. That division for years was ruled by the Titans. Jaguars were bad for years. Colts were mediocre. Texans were bad for a while. Now the Texans are the clear team that everybody thinks is going to win it. The Jaguars, who was everybody's favorite, who 2 years ago no one thought could win, they dropped off. Their win total is 8.5. The over is minus 115. The under is 105. The Colts have the same win total projection at 8.5. That's the over is plus 115, which is not a bad value. I think they'll be around 9 or 10 wins. The under is minus 140. And lastly, the Titans do not have a good roster, and they've went crazy in free agency. Their win total is 6.5. The over is plus 115. The under is minus 140.
Yeah, that one, last year the Jaguars were like the heavy favorite in the South, and they kind of fell on their face. I loved the Jags last year as well. We'll see if the Texans go down the same road here where they are. Now, I'm a little surprised that they're not a heavy favorite. They're only 9.5, where Jacksonville 8.5, and the Colts 8.5. They're saying that's a 3-team race. Yeah,
it is, clearly, yeah. I mean, you've only got a game separating them. I would agree with that. Then the last division, the Chiefs are 11.5. See, I don't agree with this one. They got pretty significant issues at receiver. They lost their best corner. They're at 11.5. The over, folks, is minus 120. Now, the division's really bad, and we'll get to that in a second. The under is plus 100. This surprised me. I would go under with this one. The Chargers the over is 8.5, so that means 9 wins. The over is minus 140. The under is plus 115. That surprises me.
Yeah, well, the Chiefs, I agree with you. 11.5 seems to be a lot to consistently be able to do that. Again, as the roster declines a little bit, you still have Mahomes, but to get to 12 wins again for them would be crazy. The Chargers one's kind of interesting. I guess they really like Harbaugh in that spot there, and the 2 teams at the bottom, I mean, I can't figure themselves out. But I think the Raiders at 6.5 might be a nice overplay, but 145, not great value.
Correct. So the Raiders and my old friend Antonio Pierce, who I saw 2 weeks ago at the owners' meetings, it was good to catch up with him. We worked together at ESPN. 6.5 win total. The over is minus 145. The under is plus 120. And finally, now Scott Farrell's funny. He and I argued over this one. I told him he's flat out wrong on this. So the Broncos 5.5, the over's -145, the under's +120. He said if they don't make the playoffs, or if they go under, right? Meaning they have 5 wins or less, there's no way Sean Payton's back. I don't agree with that. The roster's not good enough. They have no quarterback. They've got some issues on defense.
He's not back because he steps down, or they fire him.
Yeah, he was acting like he could get canned. There's no way he's getting canned. Come on, man. They need a quarterback. They don't have one. You can't win without a quarterback. Everyone listening in this market, I know not everyone's an Eagles fan. The Giants fans know right now. Daniel Jones dropped off significantly. He got hurt. They had no chance. Jets fans know, as you mentioned, Mike, without Aaron Rodgers, they had no chance. It's the most important position in sports. When you don't have one, you're always going to be looking for one. You never want to have to look for one. That's a bad feeling.
Yep. Love these kind of conversations. It just kind of gets you ready for the season, even though it's so far off. But, hey, listen, the draft, I want to see how the draft changes some of these things because there's a couple here. You mentioned the Steelers. We both agree on that one. That's one that I like. Kind of like the Texans at 9.5. I think they're like an 11-win team at this point right now. So those would be two that kind of stand out me on the over. What about, hey, last year it was wide open. This was not a clear-cut race for MVP. So as we jump into another season, who are some of the names that are getting thrown around the top of the list in terms of odds?
All right, so this is we'll do one section of the player awards. This is the AP Associated Press MVP. Mahomes, he's pretty much going to be the favorite every year. He's +600. Josh Allen and Joe Burrow +900. I mean, I like the Burrow one. That's one of them that I like. C.J. Stroud +1,000, who was tremendous. Heck, you could have voted for him for potential MVP last season as a rookie. Lamar Jackson +1,200. Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott +1,400. And my number one, I love this one. Pharrell was kind of surprised, but it's hard to argue with it based on the way that he played. He had a breakout season. Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, and Jalen Hurts at +1,600. I love Love at 1,600. Why? Breakout player. Best young receiver corps in the National Football League, really good at tight end. They got to freshen up their offensive line a little bit, which they know they have to do. The guy was so good, and this is one of the rare times, Mike. Ironically, Aaron Rodgers went through the same thing with Brett Favre, that you don't play a quarterback for 2 or 3 years, and the guy turns out to be really good when you let him play. Remember, his first playing time was against the Eagles a couple years ago. Looked good in that second half, but I love the way Jordan Love looked. 36 combined touchdowns last season, 32 passing. Nobody thought in fact, Mike, he did not have a very good training camp. That's the amazing thing about him. But his second half, no quarterback played better in the NFL in the second half of last season. And I love him at 1,600. Again, as you said, you make a good point. If you're going to get on these odds early, like the Lions one I gave you last year, I said on your show in the spring, get on the Lions now before the hype train becomes too big.
Yep.
If you recall, they were so overhyped in training camp. Get on Jordan Love. That hype's going to be there. I'm telling you. And the Steelers, the over 7.5. Come on, I know -165 is a little bit high. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in 15 years. Come on.
That one seems to be like they're almost baiting you into that one. The MVP one's interesting. Josh Allen with no Stephon Diggs, Davis, what's that offense going to look like? The fact that he's number 2, that's putting a lot on his shoulders. I love C.J. Stroud at +1,000. That's a one that you might say, I'm going to get in on that one really early there. But what does it say about what the view of Hurts is? He was a favorite for a lot of last year. He's now +1,600. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that are ahead of Jalen Hurts right now.
Yeah. And I think what's happened is, and we see this, and this happens in fantasy as well, when a player who's really hyped or is coming off a great season, next season disappoints, next season people let him drop in fantasy, and here the odds makers are like, look, we're not going to be as bullish on him. And Love, Purdy, and Hurts are all +1,600. Love, to me, has got the best chance. They are so deep at receiver, so deep at tight end. Matt LaFleur is a very good play caller. They got things going on with him. Jordan Love, because he plays in that market, it's not what we call a national market in Green Bay. People don't get to see him play, but if you're in fantasy, folks, you got to be on Jordan Love. He's going to be an absolute a stud, and he's not a great. I mean, he did have 4 rushing touchdowns. he'll run when a pocket breaks down, but he's not a runner per se. But the guy's really gifted and been a great story of development last season.
Adam Caplan, Inside the Birds podcast. Before we let you roll here, Fletcher Cox had his press conference today. He said he's hoping he did enough to convince Hall of Fame selectors that he's worthy of Canton. Do you look at Fletcher Cox as being a Pro Football Hall of Famer, or is he just an Eagles Hall of Famer?
All right, so Mike, every Hall of Fame is number intensive. Obviously, the MLB is more numbers intensive. I've learned my lesson of when people ask me this, like people ask me about Jerome Bettis, right, before he got in, and I actually went to buses. He got inducted with Bill Polian. I worked with Jerome and Bill Polian at ESPN, so I wanted to see him get inducted. But I knew, look, he was on great teams with Pittsburgh. I remember him getting hurt a bunch at the end of his career. I'm like, I don't know about that. But when I went to look at his numbers, like he had to get in, absolutely had to get in. So why am I bringing this up? Off of my first thought would be no for Cox. Now, I know the sacks were not official until maybe the 80s or 90s. I have to look that up. But it's a little bit more sort of reactionary for the Hall of Fame compared to baseball.
82, by the way.
Okay, 82. So I'd have to look where he measures up. But here's the thing about Fletcher Cox, which cannot be underestimated. Show me a more consistent defensive tackle since he was drafted. More durable, by the way. And a high-character guy, became a real leader late in his career. It's a great question, Mike. We have to give that more thought. It's like with Lane Johnson. On performance, he gets in without even thinking, but he had the off-the-field stuff on his career. But that's a great question with Fletcher Cox. That's a tough one. I really would have to look at the numbers comparatively.
Did you see Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson's performance at WrestleMania?
I saw the clips. Yeah, I saw the clips. I haven't watched, as I told you, Mike, I haven't watched wrestling. And I watch AEW a little bit because I know Tony Khan and Alex Marvez is a friend of mine. So if they put clips up, I'll look at them. But I don't know who these guys are. I mean, look, if you ask me certain wrestlers if they were still wrestling, I'd say, I have no idea. I just don't follow it. But
came out with the luchador masks on the two of them.
That was awesome, and I know the luchadors are. So yeah, I thought that was great, and I'm glad the weather cleared up. No doubt. So I heard. So someone told me Cody Rhodes won. Is that right? At WrestleMania.
That is correct. Yes.
I have no idea if he's a good title holder. If he'll be good. He seems to have good charisma, which is what you need to be a champion. So I don't know, but look, I followed his father, the late Virgil Runnels. For people inside wrestling, Dusty Rhodes, his real name is Virgil Runnels, but that's cool. It's funny because I know he dyed his hair blonde. When he first started, he had black hair. I did see pictures of Cody Rhodes when he was younger.
Yeah, Lane said he lost 15 pounds so that when he took his shirt off, he had a better appearance.
Train, yeah. I assume they were training at the Monster Factory, old Larry Sharp.
Oh, man. Good stuff. All right, Adam Caplan, of course, you could download the Inside the Birds podcast and, of course, watch their YouTube content. Just search Inside the Birds and, of course, Football at 4 here on the Sports Pass. We'll look at the NFC win totals later on in the week. Jeff's here tomorrow. Adam will be back on Friday. Thanks, pal.